Okay, let's unpack this monumental, this paralyzing problem facing the entire U.S. economy, the housing market. It's a structural paradox that defies traditional solutions.
Right.
We are in a housing crisis, yes, but crucially, it's one that a simple infusion of cash or, manipulating interest rates just cannot fix. It's a fundamental failure in the supply chain itself.
That's the core diagnosis. It's really the only place to start before you can even think about a solution. When you analyze the commentary and the hard data, especially the warnings coming from the very top, I mean, people like Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, you realize the problem is explicitly labeled as a structural or secular shortage, not merely cyclical. And that's a massive distinction.
Help us define that distinction for the listener. What does it mean when the head of the Federal Reserve looks at the housing crisis and says, my primary tool won't work?
Well, it means that the standard levers of monetary policy raising or lowering the federal funds rate, they're designed to manage demand. If inflation is too high because people are borrowing too much money to buy homes, the Fed raises rates to cool that demand, a cyclical crisis response to that. People step back, maybe inventory builds up a little, and prices stabilize.
But this isn't that.
No, a structural crisis is completely different. It means that there is a physical scarcity of the underlying asset. We simply haven't built enough homes for the population over the last decade. So Powell is essentially admitting that if you have 10 families who need a house and there are only 6 houses available, manipulating the cost of borrowing for those 10 families doesn't. It doesn't conjure the other 4 houses into existence. The crisis is rooted in physical inventory, not just financial appetite.
Right. So if the crisis is supply side, rooted in this slow, expensive, fragmented process of construction, then trying to fix it with demand-side tools like high interest rates.
Yeah.
That just creates a different kind of paralysis.
Precisely. It creates what the sources call the lock-in effect.
Hmm.
I mean, think of the millions of existing homeowners who refinanced or bought during that period of historically low rates, maybe 3 or 4%. They're sitting on a tremendous financial privilege.
And what happens when they look at the current rates, 6, 7, or even 8%, and they think about selling their current home?
The math is just disastrous. To sell their existing home means they surrender that 3% mortgage, and then they have to finance their next home at double the rate. Their monthly payment could instantly soar by 50, 60, even 70% just to maintain the same size of housing.
They become financially trapped, locked in to their current property.
Exactly. They're locked in.
And this is the crucial point for inventory then. They refuse to sell, which just drastically limits the supply of available homes on the market, especially in established neighborhoods.
Correct. And this inventory drought is why home prices remain artificially buoyant, even as high interest rates / general affordability for, say, first-time buyers. It creates this bizarre stagnant market where prices are high, but transactions are frozen. We have low supply, high prices, and severely limited buyer access. It is a market that requires a radical intervention on the supply side.
Which brings us directly to the mandate for a structural solution. The sources stress that we need market and government action to generate more housing of different kinds. And this, you argue, necessitates looking backward to historical models of industrial efficiency.
We have to. We must move beyond the fragmented, the bespoke site-built construction model that dominates today. The solution lies in manufacturing, not just contracting. And that manufacturing precedent is best illustrated by the 20th century company town model, specifically the one pioneered by the Crossett Lumber Company in Arkansas, starting around 1898.
Okay, so why Crossett? Why them over other famous kit home examples, like, say, Sears or Aladdin? Those companies also sold standardized houses.
The difference is vertical integration, and it's total. Sears sold you the blueprint and a box of materials. But the customer, you, still had to secure the land, find the contractor, and manage all the complexity of site assembly. Crossett didn't just sell the box. They owned the entire process from the seed in the ground to the roof shingle. They owned the trees, the land, the mill that cut the lumber, the design process, and the housing the workers lived in and rented.
That total control. That's the mechanism for cost reduction and predictability.
It is the mechanism for scalability. The ultimate goal of this deep dive is to synthesize that historical efficiency, the standardized, predictable Crossett gray home with the advanced modern material science is available in that exact same region today. We're designing a technologically advanced kit dwelling for the climate and the economy of 2026.
So if you're listening, think of it this way. The Crossett kit home is the ultimate Lego set of urban development. We're looking at standardized, high-quality, pre-engineered pieces that snap together perfectly every time, allowing for rapid, predictable assembly at massive scale. That's our mission today. Analyzing the historical roots, the modern blueprints, the material upgrades, and the financial structure needed to turn this concept into reality. Let's delve a little deeper into the structural nature of this crisis, because understanding why the market failed is so crucial to understanding the power of the Crossett solution. We touched on Jerome Powell's secular shortage warning. If the Fed's tools only affect demand, what other forces actually created this supply gap?
It's really a confluence of three long-term supply failures. First, and this is a big one, restrictive zoning. Most desirable areas are zoned exclusively for single-family homes on large lots, which automatically limits density and drives up the land cost per unit.
Right.
Second, a massive skilled labor shortage since the 2008 recession. A lot of experienced carpenters and construction workers left the industry and just never came back.
And the third failure.
Fragmentation. Just the fragmentation of the supply chain itself. Construction is still largely a bespoke, site-built craft. Every house is basically a prototype. Materials are sourced globally, which leads to price volatility and massive lead times. When you combine high land costs, scarce labor, and an inefficient, fragmented material supply, you get a market that cannot build enough smaller, affordable homes quickly.
And the high interest rates, rather than fixing this, they just exacerbate the lock-in effect, leading to that inventory paralysis. Let's try to quantify that for the listener.
Sure. Let's say you're a homeowner who bought a $300,000 house in 2018 with a 3.5% mortgage. Your payment is manageable. Today, that house is now worth $500,000. If you sell it and buy a new $500,000 house, you're now financing at 7%. Your borrowing power has been effectively halved, and your monthly payment for the exact same amount of money borrowed is dramatically higher.
So you're economically penalized for selling. It's a rational choice to stay put.
Exactly. And the consequence of millions of homeowners making that financially rational decision is that the entire market inventory shrinks dramatically. Data suggests inventory turnover in established markets is at historic lows, sometimes 30 to 40% below historical averages. You might see prices stabilizing or even dipping slightly in some high-rate environments, but only because transaction volume has evaporated. The homes themselves are still scarce.
This is why the sources argue that we need to stop thinking about a housing market and start thinking about a housing production challenge.
That's the mindset shift. If we accept the structural diagnosis, then we have to revive methods of deep integration efficiency that bypass the current site-built constraints. We need a supply-side shock. And that shock, ironically, can be found in the historical precedent of the most efficient, industrialized housing producer in American history, the company town.
So we're not just looking for historical housing kits. We're looking for a historical business model that proved it could rapidly deploy high-quality, repeatable housing solutions. And that points squarely to the Crossett Lumber Company, established at the very dawn of the industrial age in the Deep South.
Yes. We need to understand how Crossett eliminated all the friction points we face today. Land acquisition, material sourcing, labor consistency, and design standardization. They prove that total vertical integration leads directly to cost predictability and speed, the two ingredients missing from our modern housing mix.
Okay, let's dive into the history, because the establishment of Crossett is a fascinating story of industrial ambition meeting local resistance. Our narrative begins in late 1898 in Ashley County, Arkansas.
The central figure is a man named Edgar Woodward Cap Gates. He was tasked with establishing a massive sawmill operation. His initial target was Hamburg, which was the established county seat. But the leaders of Hamburg rejected him outright. And this wasn't, a casual disagreement.
They weren't just being cautious. The sources indicate they actively feared the scale of this new industry.
They absolutely did. They worried the mill would be such a dominant force that it would monopolize the local labor supply, driving up wages for their existing businesses. And more profoundly, they feared the influx of foreign elements, laborers, engineers, supervisors from outside their conservative local community. They worried it would fundamentally disrupt the social and moral order.
That gives so much context to Gates's next move, which demonstrates that need for total control. If the established town won't have you, you simply build your own town.
Exactly. Gates abandoned Hamburg and moved 13 miles west. He selected a specific ridge location, positioned strategically between two tributaries of the Wachita River, and his primary criteria were operational. A massive, untapped supply of virgin pine and oak timber, and, crucially, high ground for superior drainage. This attention to drainage was key to sanitation and long-term health, which was itself an industrial requirement for labor stability.
But before the town could be built, the workers had to live somewhere. And this brings us to the zero point of deployable shelter, Tent City.
It's such a powerful illustration of the desperate need for speed. In the brutal winter of 1898-99, amid what was described as continual rains, the initial settlers, including Gates himself, pitched tents directly on the muddy ridge. They were there to clear the timber for the future mill and the town grid. The construction of the mill and the homes were running concurrently, illustrating a kind of parallel phased construction deployment. They couldn't wait for a traditional permanent structure.
And the first mill, Mill Number 1, came online in 1899, and we see the housing evolving almost immediately, demonstrating that initial stage of modularity.
Yes, the very first permanent structures were these fascinating hybrids. They had wooden floors and wooden sidewalls, but many were initially topped with canvas roofs. The mill could churn out dimension lumber for walls and floors quickly, but producing finished products like shingles and roof decking. That took time and secondary milling processes.
So the canvas roof was just a temporary placeholder, a stopgap.
Precisely. It was a functional stopgap. It allowed workers immediate shelter and habitation while the final materials were being manufactured. This phased modular construction methodology, floor and walls first, roof finishing later, is exactly what modern structural insulated panel systems and panelized construction try to emulate today. It minimizes wasted time on site.
And by 1902, Tent City was completely gone. It was replaced by this meticulously engineered grid of standardized housing. These weren't site-built homes. They were manufactured using the standardized dimension lumber produced by the mill itself.
The standardization was the engine of their entire economy. They owned the entire loop. The mill produced vast quantities of identical pre-cut lumber, which eliminated waste and allowed the assembly of houses at an unprecedented speed. These homes, famously painted Crossett gray and enclosed by uniform picket fences, were a visible manifestation of that efficiency strategy.
Let's dwell on the Crossett gray for a moment. It sounds like an aesthetic choice, but you argue is fundamentally an economic one.
Oh, it was a maintenance budget strategy, pure and simple. By standardizing the design, the fixtures, and even the single color of paint, the company drastically streamlined its supply chain for repairs. If all 200 houses needed the same window sash or the same color paint for touch-ups, the cost of bulk procurement dropped, and the speed of maintenance escalated dramatically. This efficiency ensured the company housing remained well-kept and attractive, which was essential for retaining a skilled workforce.
Now, we can't discuss the company-town model without addressing the element of paternalism. I mean, the company owned everything, the land, the mill, the houses. Workers rented them for just a few dollars a month. While modern solutions have to shed the controlling aspects, that integration of services is a key takeaway.
The paternalism was total, yes. The company provided all the essential municipal services. The company store, the Rose Inn Hotel, schools, churches. This was a calculated move to ensure stability, moral consistency, and a consistent, productive labor pool. The anecdote about Cap Gates and the church is the ultimate example of integrated municipal control.
Remind us of that story because it really highlights how integrated their control was over the very landscape of the town.
So Gates learned that a saloon proprietor planned to move into the new town, intending to establish a business that Gates viewed as disruptive and destabilizing to his workforce. Zoning regulations at the time often prohibited liquor sales within a certain distance of a place of worship. So literally overnight, Gates mobilized his construction crews and built the first Methodist church so rapidly that it was fully functional, or at least legally recognizable, before the saloon could open. He used construction speed as a preemptive zoning tool.
That's incredible, fighting municipal zoning wars with hammers and nails back in 1902. But the modern takeaway, if we set aside the paternalism, is the power of that integration.
That's the enduring lesson. The modern housing process is choked by fragmentation. Land acquisition is handled by one group, permitting by the city council, construction by small contractors, and financing by separate institutions. Each silo adds massive delays and cost layers. Crossett showed that when manufacturing, the mill, design, standardization, and municipal planning, Gates's control, are integrated, the barrier to entry for rapid, affordable housing production just collapses. We need to integrate those siloed functions, land, permitting, and manufacturing, to reduce the delays driving the current crisis.
Okay, so moving from history to architectural application, we have to talk about the missing middle. This is the specific housing market that the modern Crossett kit home is designed to capture.
The missing middle is such a critical gap in our housing supply. The contemporary market really bifurcates into two extremes, either massive, expensive, low-density suburban McMansions or dense, high-rise, often equally expensive apartment blocks. We have almost completely stopped building the housing stock that historically served the entry-level workforce. Small cottages, duplexes, fourplexes, starter homes, typically ranging from about 600 to 1,200 square feet.
And why does the modern market ignore the middle?
Simply put, the profit margins are too low, and the permitting process is just as difficult as it is for a luxury home. So developers prefer to maximize square footage on expensive land, which leads to luxury homes or high-density rentals. The small, efficient, detached starter home has almost vanished.
The sources outline a detailed forensic analysis of the original Crossett town, using historical maps and lumber standards, to reconstruct 4 core typologies that directly address this need. These are designs proven by, a century of habitation.
And their dimensions were dictated by the practical constraints of material and transport, which are the exact constraints we need to respect today for affordability. We're synthesizing efficiency across 100 years.
Let's start with the smallest and most efficient, the Foreman shotgun house.
The shotgun house is the quintessential Southern workforce dwelling. Its defining characteristic is its narrow, linear design rooms are connected end to end, usually with doors lined up, which facilitates maximum cross-ventilation in hot, humid climates. It's dense and it's energy efficient through passive design.
The proposed modern kit dimension is key here. 14 feet by 48 feet, which gives you 672 square feet. Why that 14-foot width? That sounds very specific.
That 14-foot width is arguably the single most important design element for the kit model. It maximizes interior space while strictly adhering to modern highway transport laws. When you pre-manufacture a module and ship it down the road, anything significantly wider than 14 feet requires expensive permits, specialized escorts, route surveys. By keeping the design at 14 feet, the Crossett kit maximizes transportability, thus slashing logistics costs.
And the high ceilings.
Historically, they were essential for cooling, often 10 feet high. This is preserved in the modern blueprint. These high ceilings allow for the passive cooling phenomenon known as the stack effect, where hot air naturally rises and escapes through high windows or vents. It reduces the reliance on constant mechanical air conditioning. The layout divides neatly into the 3 zones: a public front room, a private rear bedroom, and a service core with the kitchen and bath in the middle.
Next up is the standard family unit, the one that made up the bulk of the town. The Millwright 3-room mill house. And this is where we get that phenomenal historical material metric.
It is a stunning fact. It really illustrates the abundance of the virgin forest. Contemporary accounts noted that a single large virgin pine tree from the Crossett holdings contained roughly 7,500 board feet of usable timber. That was enough lumber to build one of these millwright houses entirely.
Wow. Think about that level of self-sufficiency. It just puts our modern obsession with material sourcing into sharp perspective. The house was essentially a single magnificent tree.
It was. And the proposed modern kit dimension respects this historical constraint. A rectangular footprint of 24 feet by 36 feet, totaling 864 square feet. This size perfectly hits the sweet spot of the missing middle for a small family. It features the traditional hall and parlor configuration, a large common area, and 2 private rear bedrooms. It's small but highly functional.
The third typology is perhaps the most forward-thinking, even back then. The camp portable house. This is the great-grandfather of the modern accessory dwelling unit, or ADU.
These were developed specifically for the transient logging camps, like Camp Number 2. They were really innovative sectional houses, explicitly designed to be unbolted, disassembled into large modules, and loaded onto standard 40-foot flatbed rail cars whenever the logging operation moved to a new section of the forest.
So the dimensions weren't dictated by comfortable living, but by railroad constraints.
Exactly. They had to be narrow, typically restricted to 10 or 12 feet in width to meet rail clearance regulations. The modern kit proposal embraces this constraint for the modern market, proposing a 12 by 20-foot accessory dwelling unit. This immediately serves the massive modern demand for backyard offices, guest suites, or rental income properties. It's highly efficient and capitalizes on that historical modularity for modern convenience.
And finally, to avoid having a subdivision that looks entirely homogeneous, we need an anchor, a premium product here, and that comes from the Rose Estate.
The original Rose Inn was the architectural and social centerpiece of Crossett. It was a massive, 60-room colonial revival craftsman-style structure, designed to house company officials and the town's school teachers, hence its famous nickname, the Co-ed Hotel. It was the physical manifestation of the company's pride and stability.
Right, you can't build a 60-room hotel for starter home development, but leveraging that architectural history provides a massive aesthetic advantage.
Precisely. The proposal is a scaled-down, luxurious 2.5-story design, maybe with a 40 by 60-foot footprint. This structure acts as the anchor home for a new subdivision, or perhaps a boutique bed and breakfast kit for investors. It uses the nostalgia and the grand features detailed paneling, sweeping porches to create a highly desirable premium product that leverages the company heritage while boosting the overall financial yield of the development.
So we have small, medium, portable, and premium all based on proven, historically efficient typologies ready to address the missing middle. Now we have to ensure these houses last, which brings us to the biggest modern upgrade, material science.
Right. This segment is where the concept truly modernizes. Wood is cost-effective, it's renewable, it's beautiful, but it has two major historic weaknesses: fire and rot. And the solution to both, incredibly, is geographically located right next door to the historical timberlands.
We're talking about the convergence of timber history and chemical innovation. So where does the chemistry come from?
It comes from the deep geology of El Dorado, Arkansas, which is in Union County, right next to Ashley County, where Crossett sits. The area is positioned directly atop the Smackover Limestone Formation, which is a vast subterranean brine reserve that is incredibly rich in bromine.
Bromine, the element used in many flame retardants.
Yes. Lanxess, a global chemical leader, operates 3 major plants in El Dorado dedicated to extracting and processing this bromine. This resource is the primary feedstock for advanced flame retardants globally. This means the key chemical innovation required to make the wood framing fire safe is literally coming out of the ground less than 50 miles from where the timber is harvested. This local sourcing is a critical competitive advantage.
And the specific game-changing product we need to discuss is Emerald Innovation 3000. It sounds highly technical.
It is. It's a significant chemical leap forward, a brominated polymeric flame retardant. For those of us who aren't chemists, the term to focus on is polymeric.
Okay, so why is a polymeric retardant such a game changer compared to older chemical additives? What does that mean for the family living in the home?
Well, older legacy fire retardants were smaller molecules, and because of their size, they posed environmental and health concerns because they could sometimes leach out or bioaccumulate in organisms. They could cross biological membranes.
Sure.
Emerald Innovation 3000, however, is a high molecular weight polymer. Think of it like a dense, heavy object, like a bowling ball, compared to a tiny grain of sand. The bowling ball is too large to cross those biological membranes. This design makes it non-toxic and environmentally sustainable, solving the major ethical and health hurdles that dogged previous generations of flame retardants. It achieves safety without compromising sustainability.
And how do we incorporate this polymer into the actual house kit?
The modern Crossett kit home utilizes structural insulated panels, or SIPs. These are sandwich panels, essentially a core of rigid foam, either expanded polystyrene or extruded polystyrene laminated between 2 sheets of structural sheathing. By incorporating Emerald Innovation 3000 directly into that foam core, the panels achieve a superior fire safety rating, typically a Class A fire rating, while simultaneously dramatically improving the structure's energy efficiency.
It's a dual-purpose material science win. It makes the home safer and cheaper to heat and cool. Now, there was a specific query in the source about bromine sprayed paper insulation. How does the Lanxess chemistry interact with cellulose insulation, which is essentially treated paper?
That's where we get into the custom-engineered wall system. Standard cellulose insulation, which is 80 to 85% recycled newspaper, is usually treated with borates. Borates are excellent because they are effective against both fire and, crucially, wood-boring insects and rot, which are major concerns in a humid climate like Arkansas.
So we aren't replacing the borates. We're augmenting them for superior fire performance.
Exactly. Lanxess offers a range of phosphorus-based flame retardants, specifically disflamol and Livigard, which are liquid phosphate esters, and these are highly effective for materials that are organic or cellulosic in nature, improving their char formation properties during a fire.
So this allows the proposal to create a proprietary layered system, the fire shield wall. Outline those 3 layers of defense for us.
We're basically building redundancy into the wall assembly, and it's all sourced locally. 1. The structural frame. All the dimension lumber, the studs, the sheeting would be pressure treated with Lanxess wood preservatives. This offers full fungicide and insecticide protection, Solves the termite and rot problem right from the foundation. 2. The insulation core. The cellulose insulation would be treated with a borate-phosphorus hybrid blend. This combination creates a dense, non-combustible char layer when exposed to extreme heat, effectively stopping the spread of fire through the wall cavity. And 3. The interior barrier. Before the drywall is installed, a spray-applied intumescent coating, using those powerful Lanxess phosphorus additives, acts as a secondary heat-activated barrier, further delaying ignition.
That is a remarkably robust and defensible system. Yeah. And it solves a perception problem often associated with wood frame housing. The brand built with Lanxess science isn't just marketing jargon, it's a warranty of durability.
It creates instant consumer confidence. You are taking a cost-effective, renewable material wood and eliminating its historical vulnerabilities by leveraging local, sustainable chemical science.
And let's not overlook the crucial vertical integration aspect here, which feeds directly into the financial stability model. We're talking about true supply chain resilience.
That is the ultimate defensive mode. The timber is sourced from Ashley County. The flame retardants and wood preservatives are sourced from Union County. We are talking about input materials coming from within a 50-mile radius. This dramatically reduces reliance on fragile global supply chains, stabilizes input costs, and significantly lowers the transportation and carbon footprint compared to sourcing materials worldwide. This is regional economic efficiency at its absolute finest.
We've established the historical model and the modern material superiority. Now, we must talk brass tacks, finance. If the goal is affordability at scale, we have to prove that the Crossett kit model fundamentally fixes the massive inefficiency of traditional site-built construction.
The current system is financially unsustainable for the affordable housing market. It relies on unpredictable schedules, bespoke labor, volatile pricing. The source's main economic argument is really simple. Standardization is the ultimate financial lever.
How does that play out in the manufacturing environment?
By strictly limiting the catalog to just 3 or 4 distinct pre-engineered models, the Millhouse, the Shotgun, the ADU, and the Rose Estate Anchor, the factory floor is transformed. It stops acting like a custom cabinet shop and starts acting like an assembly line. They cut thousands of identical boards, panels, and frames. There is no retooling or re-engineering necessary between houses. This repeatable efficiency drives down the unit cost dramatically.
And the most significant corresponding financial advantage has to be labor cost reduction, given the skilled labor shortage we discussed earlier.
Absolutely critical. The kit homes arrive on-site pre-cut, pre-drilled, and clearly labeled. They are meant to be assembled rapidly by semi-skilled crews, not bespoke master carpenters. This industrialization is projected to reduce on-site labor time by anywhere from 30 to 50%. That means a house that might take 6 months to frame using traditional methods could be erected and dried within weeks.
That predictability in timeline and the massive reduction in labor hours, that offers an immediate and massive financial advantage, which translates directly into lower sale prices and better returns for investors.
It de-skills the installation process, yes. And because the construction timeline is predictable, it dramatically mitigates risk, which makes the project much more attractive to capital. Standardization drives complexity out, which is where cost usually hides.
Okay, let's look at how the original company financed their project. Did they rely solely on company profits, or was there a formalized structure?
There was a formalized structure that holds a really strong precedent for today. In 1937, the Crossett Housing Corporation was active and acted almost like a modern municipal housing authority. They issued formalized bonds to finance the construction of 199 homes, and these bonds were successfully sold to local institutions, specifically noting the First National Bank of El Dorado. This historical example proves that local financial institutions were comfortable investing in housing initiatives when those initiatives were backed by the stability, predictability, and efficiency of the vertically integrated manufacturing process.
So the modern proposal suggests a similar vehicle, a new Crossett Housing Trust.
Right. This trust could issue either municipal bonds or specific private equity instruments. The capital raised would fund the crucial upfront costs: factory construction, buying the manufacturing equipment, and most importantly, strategic land acquisition. By tying the bond issuance directly to the predictable, efficient output of the factory, they can attract capital that seeks stable, low volatility returns.
Now, we need to address the financing hurdle for the average buyer. Historically, financing for traditional kit homes has been notoriously difficult because banks hate the risk of construction loans, especially if the owner is managing the assembly. How does the Crossett kit model solve this financing paralysis for the end user?
That is the key to unlocking mass market penetration. A traditional kit home requires the buyer to secure three complex financial instruments: a land loan, a construction loan, which is risky and often high interest, and then converting that into a permanent mortgage. It's too complex for most buyers and too risky for most national banks.
The fix is simplifying the product.
The fix is the turnkey package. The new Crossett Housing Company would partner directly with local and regional lenders to offer a single, bundled product. This single mortgage covers the land, the cost of the kit, and the fixed-price assembly contract managed by the company's preferred assembly crews.
So the buyer walks in, signs one set of papers, and gets a house built by a predictable team backed by a stable local company.
It completely mitigates the construction risk for the bank. They're not lending to an individual trying to manage subcontractors. They are lending against a guaranteed outcome produced by an industrialized manufacturer. The loan package immediately becomes much less risky and can be underwritten as a standard residential mortgage upon completion, opening the door to conventional, lower rates for the buyer.
Finally, let's look at the financial yield for developers. If developers can't make money on density, this solution won't scale. Did the historical Crossett model provide high-yield layouts?
The answer is absolutely yes. We have the proof in the historical plat maps. The 1931 Crossett Camp plat shows an incredible density, fitting 208 homes in a compact grid layout. This high-density, standardized single-family layout yields superb returns for developers because the land utilization is efficient and the construction time is minimal. And crucially, it achieves this density while still preserving the desirable aesthetic of a detached house with a yard and a front porch.
So it delivers the American dream, a detached home, but at a density and cost that the current sprawling suburban model simply can't achieve. We have small, standardized, rapidly assembled, high-quality homes placed efficiently on the land, backed by integrated financing. The structural fix closes the financial loop.
It transforms a fragmented, expensive, unpredictable craft into a streamlined, cost-controlled, predictable manufacturing operation, which is the only way to meet a structural shortage.
This deep dive has shown us that the Crossett Kit Home proposal is a powerful convergence of history and innovation. It is not just architectural nostalgia, it is a direct structural answer to the economic and logistical crisis defined by Federal Reserve Chair Powell.
We've uncovered a business model that, a century ago, proved it could deliver rapid, high-quality housing at scale through total vertical integration. The current home building industry is too slow, too fragmented, and too expensive. It needs the shock of industrialized efficiency that Crossett represents.
By updating that proven form with the material science of 2026, specifically, the local Lanxess fire protection, using those high molecular weight polymers and advanced phosphorus retardants, the modern kit home stands on four incredibly strong pillars.
Those pillars are: first, affordable through extreme standardization and that hyper-local sourcing of both timber and advanced chemistry. Second, available through rapid, predictable kit manufacturing that drastically cuts traditional site-built schedules and labor costs.
Third, they are profoundly durable, because the Built with Lanxess science brand guarantees advanced protection against fire, rot, and insects, solving the historical weaknesses of wood construction. And fourth, they are highly desirable, leveraging the heritage branding of historically proven, comfortable typologies, like the Mill House and the Rose Estate.
The blueprint is preserved in history. It's meticulously detailed in those old Sanborn maps. The raw materials, the timber, and the geological bromine reserves are local, and the market demand is screaming for this exact type of supply.
The entire process transforms complex, frustrating construction into a predictable, rapid assembly line, solving a structural crisis with a structural fix rooted in industrial logic. It's about taking control back from fragmentation.
And that transformation asks us to reevaluate what a home is, not just as a financial asset, but as a manufactured product.
The current structural shortage suggests we must stop asking how to build homes better and start asking how to manufacture them smarter. The solution to the 21st century housing crisis might just be waiting for us in the efficient, standardized blueprints of the 1900s.